Good morning, kindergarten. We are going to get started today on our pop art project. Hopefully you had a fun time going through the slides and watching the videos. You are going to need crayons, markers, and a pencil today. And then you also later on you are going to need a cup of water and a small paintbrush. We're going to start with your half piece of paper that you should have. We're also going to need a whole sheet of paper today too. But we're going to set that aside because we want to keep the big sheet nice and clean. Now I'm going to draw an ice cream cone. One of my favorite things to get for a tree is ice cream. And I think we can make some really colorful, pretty pop art with ice cream. So I'm going to think about the basic shapes of ice cream. And I'm thinking about the scoop first, the scoop of ice cream. And I'm going to start with a circle. Now I've got a half a sheet of paper here, so I'm going to start with a nice big circle. One of the ways that I learned how to draw a pretty good circle is by first training my hand. So my pencil is not touching the paper. I'm just going around in circles. And then when I think I have a nice circle, I'm going to gently let my pencil touch the paper. That turned out pretty good. Okay, now of course ice cream isn't a perfect circle at the bottom. We're going to add where the ice cream squishes onto the cone. So I'm going to start over here in the bottom, and I'm just going to make little half circles. All the way over to the other side. Now I want to make it look like it's all one scoop, so I'm going to erase the bottom of the circle. That already looks like an ice cream scoop, doesn't it? Now I have to add on my ice cream cone. And I'm going to start right underneath those bumps. And I'm going to have one of those sugar cones, so it's going to be a triangle shape. So I'm going to come down. There we go. And I'm going to start over on the other side, and I'm going to come down and try and touch the end of my line. If you don't get it on the first try, that's okay. Erase it and try again. I'm going to put a little pattern on my ice cream cone. So I'm going to do a few curved lines. There we go. And maybe going the other way too. So this time I'm going to start on the bottom of the ice cream. I'm going to touch the cone. And they're going to crisscross in the middle. I think I need one more. We're going to use this drawing right here to make two identical or the same ice cream cones on our good paper. So I'm going to take my black marker and I am going to trace over my lines. I'm going to go nice and slow and try and stay right on them. I want you to trace all of the lines that we kept. Do not trace the bottom of the circle where we erased it. Take your time and try and stay on the line. Alright, as you can see, I have my ice cream cone outlined in marker. Now I'm going to get my good piece of paper and I'm going to place it over top. And if I press down, you can see my black lines right through my paper. I'm going to line my ice cream cone up with the corner of my good paper. So all I've done here is I've matched the corners up on the top and the bottom. And I'm going to hold it nice and tight. And I'm going to trace over it with my pencil. Take your time when you're tracing with your pencil, just like you did when you traced with your marker. If you're having a hard time seeing any of your lines, if you press down on your paper, you can usually see through it. Okay, there's the first one. Now I'm going to move my ice cream cone over to the other side of my good paper. It's still underneath. I'm going to match up the corners again at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to trace again. Now you saw some of Andy Warhol's artwork. He used a silk screening method when he was making copies of his artwork. Sometimes he would put 100 soup cans into one piece of artwork just by copying them. Kind of like the way that they make t-shirts now. My tripod keeps falling over. Might have to get a better tripod. Alright, now once we have these outlined, I can set this one aside and I could color that later. I'm going to take my crayons and I'm going to decide what color I want my first ice cream. Now I'm not going to color the ice cream with the crayon. I'm actually just going to outline it. So you can see I'm going to go back and forth because I don't want to press hard and break my crayon. We're going to use the wax to help hold the water into our ice cream. Wax is kind of like a wall for ice cream. Now you can make your ice cream any color you want. You saw some pretty neat colors on those Marilyn Monroe pictures or the soup cans. So I've just outlined, I have not colored, but I do want to make sure I don't have any holes in my outline. And I think I want to have a yellow outline on my ice cream cone. I'm going to go right over my lines also. Okay, now the other ice cream cone I want to do completely different. I think this time I'm going to have blue ice cream. Have you ever had blue ice cream? I don't think I've had blue ice cream before. I think I'm going to have to go get some ice cream after this. Alright, I'm going to finish outlining, and when I come back, I'm going to show you how we're going to add some color to the middle of our ice cream. Okay, So I have added some marker color to my first ice cream, and you're probably looking at that saying, oh my goodness, that looks a little bit messy, Mrs. Foster. But I have a trick later on that I'm going to show you. So the one thing I was not messy about is I tried to stay inside my lines when I added my color. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I'm going to start along the edge, and I don't want to touch my crayon lines. So once I've got a little bit of a marker outline, I can scribble my color in. Now you can see I'm leaving lots of white spaces, and that's okay. I'm going to give myself a little marker line on this side over here too. And it's okay if you're a little bit messy like I am. You're going to see this trick here in a couple of minutes. Now you do have to make sure that you're using your Crayola markers for this. Don't go and get the permanent markers out, because they won't work for this next part. Okay, I'm just gonna scribble in the shapes on the cone. And then we'll be ready for the next. Okay, I've finished with my marker, and as you can see, I used a little bit of orange over top of my yellow on one side of the cone and just a little bit underneath the ice cream. And I'm going to see if this looks like shading later on. I also did that in a little bit darker blue on my first ice cream cone. You probably caught that because you're so observant. Okay, I've got to hold on to my tripod here while I do this. I'm going to start on the ice cream. I've got my brush wet. And I want to make sure I stay inside my crayon lines. It's not going to take a lot of work. I'm just going to gently swipe my brush over top of the marker. And when I use my paintbrush, I always want to pull it towards me. I never want to push my brush away. So I'm nice and careful along the edge, just like I was when I used the marker. And then I can be a little bit more loose in the middle of the ice cream. And you'll see that that marker fills in all those white spots and spreads the color out. Maybe a little bit more water on my brush. Nice and careful because I'm close to the edge. And I don't want to turn my ice cream cone green. I want that to be nice and bright. Okay, now one of the things that we do when we paint is we have to let things dry. So while my green is drying, I'm going to wash my brush off. You can hear my brush getting washed. And I'm going to go over and work on my other ice cream cone. So we're going to finish this one. And then we're going to go back and add water to our first cone. If you did a good job of putting the crayon on, it'll hold that water in so that it won't mix with your ice cream cone color or get in your background. I'm going to keep pulling my brush towards me. And that looks pretty nice. Alright, wash my brush off again. Now it's okay if your brush touches these waffle cone lines in the middle. We just don't want to go outside of the triangle. So let's see how that orange mixes with my yellow. That looks pretty nice. I think it's going to look like a shadow on the side of my ice cream cone. There we go. And my last one. Ooh, I like the blue ice cream cone. That's a lot of fun. I'm being very gentle with my brush. You can see that my bristles don't bend very much, and I never squish them while I'm adding water to my paper. If there's an area that I need to do a little bit more blending, I just gently swipe over it several times instead of one time. There we go. Very cool. Okay, now the last thing that you have to do, you're an artist, you gotta sign your work. So hopefully you've been practicing writing your name. I'm gonna put my name over here in the bottom corner. And then you'll need to take a picture of it and send it to me for grading. I hope you have so much fun with this.